The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Monday. So thrilled to be here with you today. Really such a privilege to be able to be here with you and share this program and the information that we do here. We try to take autism on from a 360-degree perspective here, whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner working with an individual who's on the autism spectrum, or you yourself are on the autism spectrum. We know that there's information and services that are out there that if we can hook you up with, you're going to have that much more success at creating progress in your life or in the life of someone that you love. And that's really important to us here. So this entire show is meant to be interactive. We hope that you participate with us. You guys have been writing in on the live feature over the night, and there are so many other ways that you can participate with us. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can be in contact with us and some of the different ways that you can watch our show. While she does that, I'm going to remind you that there's only one way still to watch us live. I'm told any day now there's going to be a couple of ways, but right now there's only one way to watch us live. That's at www.autism-live.com. For those of you watching on tablets, I still don't have that hooked up for you yet. But within a couple of days, that should be happening for you, where you will be able to watch us live on your tablets. Isn't that an exciting thing? And that came about because you supported us and subscribed to us on YouTube, which, by the way, we do have a YouTube channel. When you go there, you can watch not only the full episodes, but you can also be watching highlights. So if you don't have time to see everything and just want to see, you say, I didn't see Thursday's show, Shannon, but I want to know what were the big highlights. And let me tell you, there was some highlights on Thursday. We had a big show on Thursday. I'm like, I'm Ed Sullivan here. We got a big show here. Last week on Wednesday and Thursday, very exciting days. We just, opening the door, guests going in and out. So you can check that out on our YouTube page. It usually takes us a couple of days to get the shows up and the highlights up. In any case, the whole point is we want you to participate. I mentioned there's a live feature on autism-live.com. When you go there, you see a white box. You can put your cursor there and you can start typing and hit enter. It gives you 1,000 characters, but you can always continue to write in the next box if you need more than 1,000 characters. When you do that, it gives us an opportunity to be able to talk to you in real time and for you to be able to talk to our experts in real time, which is a really glorious thing. One of the things I want to remind you, and I have it on my list of things to talk to our tech guys about, how something that we can do so that you know when the show is actually live and when you're watching taped. Because over the weekend, some of you wrote in and said, is this live? I can't tell. One of the ways that you can tell usually is that there is a date at the bottom. So if the date matches up, then you're probably right. The show, when it's live, it's Monday through Friday. We're on Pacific Standard Time, so it's from 10 to noon. For those of you on the East Coast, that is from 1 to 3. Central Time, it's from 12 to 2. And everybody else, I just assume that you know how to do the math, because sometimes it depends on daylight savings and, but we'll try to see if we can't find some way to put live on so that you guys know when, in fact, it's live. But the truth is that you can write into that box whenever you want to and hit enter. We'll see it the next time that we're live. Just make sure when you're asking a question about something that you're watching right now that you reference what it is. Because when I go back and look at some of the questions and you say, hey, your guest was talking about this, I want to know, but I I don't know which guest it was. So be as specific as possible always, you know. We always talk about the fact that we don't give child-specific advice here, but the more specific you are, the more we can help you to get to the kinds of things that you're looking for, the support and help that you need. All right. I always remind you at the top of the show that I am not an expert in autism. I cling to that because there's so much that I'm learning, but I don't know that I'm ever going to be an expert in autism. I am a mom, and I'm not even an expert at that. I'm humbled and brought to my knees on a regular basis by the things that I don't know or mess up or do wrong as a mom. And my son was diagnosed with, my very one and only child was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He is now 10. He just started 5th grade the other day. I get all emotional. So he's a big boy now, but he's doing remarkably well. He's in a completely included neurotypical 5th grade. And actually it's a 6th grade split. So it's a big, exciting year for us. And there's still stuff that we're working on. I'll be really honest with you. And I don't know that that's ever going to be any different, that we continue to work on things. But that's why I'm here. And the thing that does for you is that it makes me really passionate about wanting to get you the help that you need. Because I either can relate to the fact that as a parent, that helpless feeling of I don't know what to do. And for those of you who are on the spectrum, I look at you and I think, my goodness, I want to make sure that the path is clear for you because my son is coming behind you. And if nothing else, I may not be knowledgeable about things here, but I'm passionate about making sure that we all get the help and support we need, because I sure got it. And my child benefited from that. So I want for you to be as lucky as I have been. And I want for all of us to continue to be lucky, right? Okay, so we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it. First, we give you an actual definition, then we give you a working definition that is significantly watered down, but hopefully will help us to really get an understanding of what we're talking about in our lives today without having to go get a degree in psychology or an ABA or autism. Because I don't know, I didn't have that scheduled in. That wasn't penciled in to what I had planned to do this year. Crazy of me, I know. In any case, our word today, you're going to love this. You've been asking for this. It's inclusion. Ooh. Oh, my thing is disconnected. So I'm going to see if I can get it hooked back up really quickly. No, it doesn't like me at all. All right, Emily, talk me through it. I did. She's talking to me. This will be Emily and I arguing. Okay, and then I slide over. I got to hit that box. See, don't you love this, that we go through this every morning? Those of you who are with me all the time. Okay, there we go. Eventually, it's because in the 5 minutes as we warm up to do the show. Okay, that's on now, Emily. You got it? She's left me. Oops. Okay. All right. I don't know what I've done now. Where is the... Oh, no, there's nothing like a live show and have me have a technical meltdown while we're... Oh, boy. I'm making a mess of things, Emily, because I told you, I already warned you that it's going to be that. All right, now do you have it? Okay. Oh, it's just that kind of a day. Okay. All right. Glad we could share that with you. So glad you could be here and see the mess that is live. Okay. But there's the word. There's the one that I said. You've wanted this. You've been asking for this. There it is. Inclusion. A lot of you are starting school. Some of you are starting it today. Some of you are starting next week. What does this mean? Let's take a look at our actual definition. Inclusion, the pairing of philosophy and pedagogical practices that allow each student to feel respected, confident, and valued, while allowing them to proceed at an appropriate pace for maximum learning. Okay, airy-fairy, what does this actually mean? Let's move to our working definition. I don't know what happened. It doesn't like me. There it is. Nope, it's gone. It isn't there. in any case, our working definition is providing an environment where children who are of all different learning capabilities can be together and hopefully be included. That's the whole basis of inclusion. So you have kids that are working at their own speed, but a part of the whole. I was last night on Pinterest and was pinning a bunch of things that one of them, and I've heard people talk about this, the difference between justice and equality. And there was a lovely, lovely picture of kids, and they showed a picture of equality and had all of the kids standing on the same box. And they said, that's what equality looks like. And we talk about equality, that everybody wants equality, right? But equality isn't really justice. And because you see a child who's very, very short and he's standing on the same size box as a kid who's very, very tall. And they're trying to see over a box, but the kid who's short can't see over the box. That's equality, but it's not justice. And then they show a picture of what justice looks like, which is that each kid is on a box that appropriately allows them to look over this board to be able to see what's happening. So when we talk about inclusion, we're talking about trying a model that looks more like the justice than the equality. When they talk about no child left behind, and I am a former teacher and was in the classroom for a lot of the years that they were talking about the no child left behind. The problem is that I think some people get confused and think, well, no child left behind means that all kids get offered the same thing. Well, you know what? Here's the deal. All kids don't need the same thing. There are some kids that if you bog them down with, we're going to learn this on this day, they don't get to fly. And we want our kids to fly, right? And likewise, if you say, well, we're going to learn this on this day, then there's the child who isn't ready for that. And by pushing that, we're going to jam that peg into the round hole, right? Even though it's square and nobody's going to make it round, right? Then all we're doing is wasting those kids' time. So one size fits all education, pshaw. And I know teachers who are absolutely splendiferous at making it so that even 30 kids in the classroom can each be valued as individuals and each be driven to learn at the speed that is appropriate for them. It's possible, it's doable, it's what inclusion should be about. And for people who say, oh, well, inclusion, because that means that there's a kid who's not moving at the same pace, they should see what really good inclusion looks like. And hopefully we'll have an opportunity to share some of that with them this week. But that's what inclusion is. And when used correctly and at the right time, it can be a very powerful thing, not just for our kids on the spectrum, but for all kids. So really, really remarkable. All right. We always have a question of the day for you. Today is no different. But we want to know what you feel in particular about inclusion. How do you feel about inclusion? And you can make it as specific or as general as possible. If you want to talk about how you feel about inclusion for your child and where your child is at right now, let's get it all up. Let's get it all out. I think a lot of times people are afraid to talk about what it means to them and how emotional it is. I know we've talked about it a little bit before on the show about how we have that preloaded program as parents that we want our kids to be included and we want them to be a part of the whole. And there is an emotional thing about when our kids aren't ready for full inclusion that is hard. I mean, I can remember when my son was 3 and saying at that first IEP meeting and saying, well, I want him to go to regular kindergarten and I want him to fit in regular kindergarten and I want him to be able to progress in regular kindergarten. And I remember the one person on the staff at the IEP meeting was like, well, that's probably not going to happen. And the depth that I felt in that moment. Now, I got really lucky and we worked our tails off and we had good services. So my child did start kindergarten on the first day, caught up at grade level, completely included, with an aide, but he was there and progressed at the speed that he needed to progress at. That isn't everybody's story, but there is and I don't mean to make it sound like the special day programs are a horrible place to be, because they're not. When our kids need to be there, they need to be there, but it's an emotional thing, right? I think we can all agree upon that. So anyways, I want to hear from you guys how you feel about inclusion. And we've got a guest that's going to be joining us a little bit later on. Alex Plank is going to be back with us today. And oh, has he got some stories to tell us about working on the bridge, and some very exciting news to tell us about the bridge. But we'll be talking with Alex about inclusion and his feelings, because Alex is on the spectrum and had some interesting years in school. So we'll hear from Alex what he feels about that. Okay. We always have a topic of the week. We have been promising you this topic for I don't know how long. You guys have been asking for this. And so all week, this week, it's about inclusion. We're going to be checking in with our experts about inclusion, asking for opinions about when is it appropriate, how is it appropriate, what are the circumstances, when do you do it, when do you not do it, what is it actually, what does it look like, and what it can mean, both the good, the bad, and I guess the ugly of it. Because just the name of inclusion is not necessarily the spirit of inclusion. There are times when our kids get parked into classrooms, and that is not the spirit of inclusion. Parking a kid in a classroom. I know that there are some teachers who are like, it doesn't matter whether the child can keep up or not, just put them in there. That's not the spirit of inclusion. And so we're going to be talking about that a great deal today. Some of the different things that we have going on today in the studio, we've got some really some important news that we're going to be sharing on the horrible side of things. We're going to go over some ABA basics a little bit later on today. And Alex Plank is going to be with us. I have confirmation. I just spoke to him a little while later. We're also going to be talking a little bit about our good friend Mike Hipple sent us some books. This is Mike's book, My School Journey, The Many Things I Have Learned. And this is a lovely little book. We've had Michael on the show, Mike, excuse me, I think he prefers to be Mike, on the show a couple of times. This is a particularly good story for kids who are feeling like they're a little bit different. You know, Mike is in a wheelchair and uses assisted technology to be able to speak, and I think he is a great reference for our kids to know that it's okay to be different. And so this is a lovely little book. And we have some copies of this that Mike has sent to us that we're going to be giving away. We're going to give you more news about what you need to do to get one of them. But right now we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we have our stress tip of the week. Stick with us.
For the month of August, I figured we'd do some fun in the sun activity. We're going to make our very own frozen bowling game. It's super fast and super easy.
I was inspired by some lessons I saw in skills.
All right, so let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are water, water bottles, balloon, and food coloring, which is always optional. First step you're going to do is make your bowling ball, since it'll have to freeze overnight. The first thing I'm going to do is take my balloon and put a few drops of food coloring in it. This is optional. If you don't have food coloring or your child has an allergy to it, don't use it, but I thought it'd be fun to make everything super colorful. So, I have my food coloring. I'm going to put a few drops in here. And then, take this to the sink and fill it up with water and tie a knot. Here's my balloon filled with water and the food coloring. I'm going to take this and place it in the freezer with some towels, just so it holds its shape better. Our next step is to make the bowling pins. I have 10 recycled water bottles that I've refilled with water. Now I'm going to put some food coloring in them.
Straight to the center at full speed. Light will surround you in a blink of an eye.
Now that my bowling ball is frozen and my pins have been filled with water, let's go outside and play with these.
See all the colors in the sky tonight. It's time to let the sunshine hide.
I hope you and your family have fun with the frozen bowling game like I did with my friend Emily. Well, until next time, craft on, guys. Bye.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live, and it's time, because it's Monday, to talk a little bit about our stress tip of the week. And because it's back to school time, I want to talk a little bit about when we change things, when we transition things, and when there are more demands put upon us. And we want to start out by talking about us, but then relate it to our children. That we've had this summer, and not to say that the summer was without stress, right? Because sometimes you have less services. But then suddenly school happens, and there's all this mountain of paperwork that comes in. All these things that you have to fill out in triplicate craziness, right? And then there's the school lunches, which, you know, sometimes in the summer you can sort of catch it on the fly and figure out what you're going to have, or go through, you know, whatever drive-through that your child can actually eat the food at. You know, you can make it work. You can color outside the lines a little bit, but when the lunch has to be packed and it has to be in the bag and it has to go out the door at a certain time, and it's really early in the morning and everybody's still a little underslept because we still haven't gotten to bedtime early enough, the stress can go ratchet all the way up. And I don't know about the rest of you, but this last week I've been like, there's no way that a human being can do everything that there is that needs to be done. There is no possibility, right? Because you get into that mode where it feels like that. It just feels like that. So what can we do when those stressful moments happen? And of course, you know, I love to quote Dr. Seuss, but I also love to quote Dory from Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. There's a certain amount of stuff that in the moment when you're feeling that way, because if we get all emotional about it and we stop and go, the amount of time that I took to have the meltdown the other day going, there isn't enough time in the day to do everything that needs to be done. I sucked up time saying that. And I was reminded of the fact that sometimes you just have to keep moving. Now, in those moments when you're feeling the stress, you got to keep breathing, and you got to put it on autopilot sometimes, and you just have to say, what can I do right now? I don't have time to clean up the whole kitchen. Can I put 4 forks in the dishwasher? I love my niece who says, when all else fails, run the machines, right? If the house is a complete and total disaster, you know, run the dishwasher and run the washing machine. Sometimes you can't even do that, right? That's when I say to myself, can I put 4 forks in the dishwasher so that later on when I come and put 4 more forks in the dishwasher, eventually I'm going to get it loaded so that I can get it run. Prioritize. Get through the moment, but keep moving, right? And then when you're not in that crazy moment, if you get 5 minutes, the next time you get 5 minutes, think about, what can I get done ahead of time? What can I have in place ahead of time? I have said, you know, the school starts and we've got a bunch of stuff that's planned for us in the upcoming months to sort of help us to get through these last months of the year, which can be very hectic between whatever holiday you celebrate and everything else going on in your life. The end of the year can be a very hectic time, right? And I always marvel at how my mother must have done it, because I always said it looked like my mother just went and holidays happened, right? But I know that my mother started using her executive functions and thinking way ahead. I used to think moms that I knew that they started Christmas shopping in August, I used to think that they were crazy. When my mother would start stockpiling pumpkin and stuff like that for Thanksgiving the second week in September, I would go, who does that? People who don't want to be hysterical in the moment. That's who does it. So we can start using our executive functions a little bit later on and go, all right, how can I streamline this? So every time I go to the grocery store, I can buy 5 non-perishable things that are going to be for the holidays so that stuff is in the cabinet and I'm not going to worry about it, right? We can start thinking about, you know, what can I buy in bulk for lunches that, you know, it's just going to be a staple, that it's there. Like, I love those seaweed snacks, you know what I'm talking about? They're lovely because it's alkalizing and the kids love it, and it tastes sort of like a fishy potato chips, but my child loves it. And you can buy a case of those instead of buying 2 or 3 or whatever it is a week. So the non-perishable things that you can just have on hand, buy them in bulk, buy them in a case, right? That's the thing that you go to those big stores for. But in the moment, remind yourself, just keep swimming. Eventually eventually you'll get to a place where you can take a breath and you can sort of regroup. I know I'm still waiting for that spot this week, but eventually we will take a breath and recoup. But in the meantime, you gotta keep moving. So that's our stress tip for the week. Stick with us. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back with some stories in the news that, oh my goodness, you're just not even going to believe some of these things. So stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi there, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome to the show. So the goal of today, we're going to make meatballs. Let's get started. So again, I'm going to take roughly a pound of my ground organic turkey, and I'm going to add in the secret vegetable. So if your kid doesn't like vegetables, don't cook in front of them, okay? Have them watch a movie or something. But you definitely want to make sure they're not watching, because then they won't eat it. So, and here we go with the egg. And our breadcrumbs. I'm just adding salt and pepper to taste. If you think about kids' shapes and sizes, you want to think small shapes, small hands. So your oven should be preheating at about 400 degrees. We're going to kick into the oven here and look at our meatballs. I did flip them halfway through the 20-odd minute. So we'll put, just like Julia Child's, there's our finished product right there. These are good. Cooking is easy. You don't have to be afraid of it. But we want to hear from you. If you can let us know what recipes are important to you, maybe convert a recipe from a traditional flour or gluten-based to a gluten-free or an allergy-free, we're here to help. So you get to us. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. You can reach out on Facebook at facebook.com/autismlive, or reach out at Talk It Now. So I know you're having a great day. I had a lot of fun cooking with you in the kitchen, but I'll tell you before we end, I got to have more meatballs. Have a great day.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Yes, well, I am not good and adept at what I need to do. So I don't have my news story for you right now. We're going to have that for you a little bit later on. But in the meantime, I promised you some ABA tips. On Mondays, we like to do ABA for beginners and check in a little bit. I want to take just a second, if you haven't already, to set up some sort of a token economy for your child for this school year. Now, last year, we offered you a sort of customizable token economy, and if you guys write in and tell us, I can email that off to you. But it's super duper important that if your child's going off to school, that we can't reward our children every 5 minutes or every 1 minute or every 10 minutes, however long it takes for our child to maintain good behavior. And for each one of our kids, it's very different, right? But what we can do, and this is the reason why we do token economies, is we can set up some sort of a system that allows us to give some, it's an economy. It's some sort of a sticker, something that they trade for the reward later on. So really, when you think about it, all of our currency, money, it's a token economy. It really, a dollar bill doesn't do much, right? We trade it for things that do things. So we're doing the same thing, but we're just creating a different economy for our kids using tokens. And you can use almost anything. You can use stickers. You can make stickers that have Velcro. You can use playing cards. You can use poker chips. I would talk with your child's teacher or teachers to figure out what's the best way that this is going to work for them, and what's the best way that it's actually going to work at creating the behavior that you want for your child. So, for instance, when Jem was in kindergarten, we made little pieces of paper. We made like a cartoony, I found it online, dollar bill. And I took where it had the cartoon of whichever president was in the middle. I took that out and I put a photo of myself with Jem and I put a photo of my husband with Jem. And we named some of them Daddy Dollars and the other ones were Mommy Money. And so when he would behave at school, he would get a Daddy Dollar or a Mommy Money. So it was sort of like two token economies, and yours doesn't have to be this involved. I'm just giving an example. That throughout the day when he was in kindergarten, the aide would be with him, and for every everything that they would do, there were like 24 little spots on this piece of paper that she would have. And she had those little itty bitty inexpensive stickers, and she would put a sticker on for when he would do a good job. And sometimes he could get 2 stickers or 3 stickers or whatever it was for each thing. So let's say that they were going to be painting. And so if he went and transitioned to it, and she could just use them indiscriminately. It was sort of like playing hot and cold, so that when he was doing good behavior, she'd just keep putting the stickers on, right? And if he saw that he didn't get one for a couple of minutes, he'd be trying to find something, he'd be listening or whatever so that he could get more stickers. And then if he got a certain number of them, and it changed throughout the year, if he got a certain number of them, then he got to have a daddy dollar or a mommy money at the end of the day. And every time he got, I think it was, for some reason, it was 42 of them, that he had to get 42 of them, and then we would go to Disneyland. And it was a way of encouraging him to count, right? So that he would count his money. And we were also teaching about money, right? So all these great lessons, and we got to go to Disneyland because he earned 42 of them. There were 42 days that he, had done really spectacularly. So we go off to Disneyland because you're setting up these circumstances where you're making sure that they're getting the reward, right? So that they get the big reward. But in the meantime, they start to see the benefits of it anyway. He liked how the day went when he was doing good, and he felt good about himself, and he was going to get to go to Disneyland. We all like to think about, oh, wow, if I do this and I get this, then this is going to happen, right? That's a good space for us to be in, too. So over the years, it changed, and I know I shared last year that it was just a sticker chart that was into 5 periods during the day. There was the morning, then recess, and then the after recess, then lunch, and then after lunch. That it was those 5 times the day, and that he could get a sticker for each time of the day, and that depending on where we were in the year, like right now at the beginning of the year, he really needs to get 3 in order to get something that he chooses. Usually it's video games, that he wants to come home and play video games. So you set up these circumstances, and I have a lovely little chart in my house that says, what are you working for today? And on that chart, there are little stickies that say swimming, or going to a movie, or doing a play date, or playing video games, or popcorn and a movie with mom, all these little things or just points towards something. But the key is the whole process has to be something that your child wants. If it isn't something your child wants, then, it's a bunch of work that you did for nothing. There has to be something that your child wants. In the beginning, my child didn't care how many stickers the aide was putting down on the piece of paper. That wasn't exciting to him. But over time, having her smile at him and praise him became more important than the little stickers, right? It just got paired together with it. And ultimately now, as a 10-year-old, he wants to know that he did a good job in class, and he hates it when he has a day that doesn't go well, and he really hates it if he comes home and he doesn't get to play his video games. So the token economy is in place to get you to the happy. And I hope that you've got some sort of system that's working. Work with your teacher, figure out what's going to work with them. There are some teachers, the thing that, it's so funny, the teacher that my son has right now, she's really into ducks. And so she gives opportunities for the kids to win ducks, and the ducks get to little rubber duckies that are all different characters. They get to pick the one they want, and they sit on their desks. And the kids they're 5th graders. You would think, would they really? But it's a status thing. How many ducks do you have on your? It's a great token economy. Token economies come in lots of different ways, but super duper important to have that so that we help our kids to be able to get to the good stuff. And in the meantime, it teaches them that there's good stuff along the way. So that's our ABA Basic for today. Stick with us. We're going to be right back after these messages.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism. My beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Grandpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some glasses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I wanted to share with you this story that over the weekend took on even more new meaning for me. Okay, I don't know if you heard about this, but there were special needs children as young as 4 the other day in Scotland that were told to sit on the floor of a train rather than in empty first-class seats because they would, quote unquote, spoil the ambiance of the carriage. Okay, so the group of young people who were special needs were from the Stage Right Theatre Group, which is based in South Lancashire, Scotland. And they were on their way back from a trip to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And standard class was completely packed. So they ended up having to sit outside the toilets. Volunteers asked the train manager if they could move to the near empty carriage of the cross-country train. They were given short shrift, as they say, and reportedly told the first-class passengers, do not need the likes of your children spoiling their journey. Yes. Even though other families paying the standard fare were allowed to move into the more expensive section, the female manager would not be swayed. After repeated polite requests to let them move, she is also said to have told the charity workers, if you don't stop talking to me, I will throw you all off. How will you get back to Motherwell? Unbelievable. So Rebecca Aiken, who is 25, who runs the group at the Carluke Leisure Center every Sunday, was really upset, oddly enough, that students ranged from 4 to 11. And she told the Daily Record, we were discriminated against because of the disabled kids we had with us. That was what she said. She also went on to say, I'm embarrassed for the kids as they were paraded in front of the passengers and made to feel like an inconvenience. The train manager thought they weren't of the standard to be allowed to sit in the business carriage, but she moved other kids and parents who paid the same train fare and into those seats. One of her associates also said their memories of what had been a brilliant day are now of her and of their train journey home. A spokesperson for the Arriva-owned cross-country trains apologized for the children's mistreatment, adding that it would investigate the incident. He said, quote, we are sorry to learn of the circumstance of the Stage Right Theatre School on their recent journey. We expect our staff to be polite and helpful at all times, and it is extremely disappointing if their behavior was as described. We will investigate the circumstances as a matter of urgency and will be in touch with them as soon as this is completed. We would like to offer our sincere apologies to Rebecca, Elaine, and all the children of the poor for the poor quality of their journey back to Motherwell. So disappointing that something like this should happen, but not as shocking as we would think, right? I had the opportunity over the weekend to go and see a play. And it was a play that I was excited to go see, and I will be honest with you that I didn't know enough information when I went to go and see the play. It was called Absolutely Filthy. And we had, oddly enough, this is one of the connections here, we have a Fringe Festival that's here in Los Angeles. It was a production that had been being done elsewhere. It was chosen to be in the Fringe Festival. It then subsequently won the Fringe Festival, and the lead actor, excuse me, I have a tickle, won the Best Actor. What I knew about the play was that it was the unauthorized parody of the Peanuts characters, you know, Charlie Brown and the like. And that was all I knew about it. I thought it was a musical. And I went to the performance to see it. And I will start out by saying I know in my heart that this show will get further productions. Last night would have been the last performance of it, but I know that there will be future productions, and it's a show not to be missed, honestly. And the lead actor, who is also the writer of the show, it's a performance not to be missed. It was truly amazing and life-changing, quite honestly. He plays the lead character is Pigpen from the Peanuts gang, and he's grown up now. And Pigpen is homeless and a drug addict and has great difficulty in his life doing anything. And you watch him on stage, and he, you know, you have this connection to this character that you knew as a child, and here is this man who's standing in front of you who's clearly broken. And it was amazing. The show was extremely funny, but extremely poignant. And you get to see how all these adult characters, you know, Lucy and Linus, and how they deal with having a friend who is outside the norm, who is different, right? Really shocking and eye-opening. Now, here's the other layer to it, that the show started and they came out to do the curtain speech, and a guy started laughing really loud, like the bark, you know, laugh as the guy was doing the speech. And everybody kind of laughed and went, oh, you know, he finds it really funny. It must be a friend of his, right? And then the show started and the laugh continued at an alarming rate and at an alarming decibel. And because of the life that I have been treated to, there was a moment when I thought, what's going on? It took me outside the play and I thought, what's going on and why is this person doing it? It's disruptive. And it only took me 1 second to stop and consider that there was more going on. Right? There was a time in my life when that wouldn't have been my go-to. And for most of the people in the audience, it wasn't their immediate go-to. They became annoyed with this man. And then they became belligerent. And then from time to time, people would go, every time he would laugh. And then people started going, shut up, and yelling things, right? And then we went to intermission, and I had an opportunity to talk to, it wasn't a huge theater, and I had an opportunity to talk to a couple of people. They're like, what is up with that guy? And I said, don't you think there's more going on there? I don't think that's a choice. Do you think that's a choice? Because what would it be if it wasn't a choice? And people were stopping and going, what are you talking about? And I said, we're watching a play about people's reactions to somebody who can't do it the way everybody else does. Have you seen this young man sitting in the audience? Because he's sitting with a group of people who clearly have other issues. They're not there dealing with the same things that we're dealing with. And I saw the look on people's faces when they realized, oh my gosh, that didn't even occur to me. There were still some people in the audience that it never occurred to. But it was this crazy sort of moment in the theater where I realized I'm watching a play about people who don't know how to deal with when somebody is inconveniently different. And I'm living it in the theater with a group of people where somebody is inconveniently different. He had as much right to be at that show as I did. He paid the same ticket price. He was watching the show and he loved it. I ended up walking to my car behind this group of people that came, and clearly it was a big outing for them, that they were so excited to have been there at the show. They came with the same knowledge that I did, that it had something to do with the Peanuts characters. And I don't think that they knew what they were in for, just as I didn't, but they loved it and they were talking about it on their way to their car. They had as much right to be there as I did, and yet their appreciation of it made it difficult. Well, the one person's appreciation of it made it difficult for everyone else. Not impossible, but it made it different. I chose to appreciate that difference and to say, you know what? I think it's informing more about the show to me than it would otherwise. It's a great show and the actors weren't thrown by it, and I kind of let go of it. There were people in the audience who didn't, and I think about the people on this train and this conductor saying, you know, having these kids on this train will disrupt other people's enjoyment. And you know what? I guess that's a possibility. I guess that's a really big possibility. But the thing is, they have a right to be there. And we as parents and individuals who are on the spectrum need to remind everybody that just because they have it neurotypical and they have things going in a certain direction doesn't mean that they get to be treated to it always being that way. And I don't know whether that is insensitive. But I'm 100% sure that people were being insensitive to that young man's experience in the movie theater, and that this train conductor was being insensitive to these children's experience. And, where's the middle ground? I'm not sure that I know, but I'm so glad that that young man got to see that performance the other night. And I'm so glad that I'm grateful that my life has informed me in a way that I stopped and considered that. I consider my life richer for the fact that I was aware of it and that I got to see the play with that context on it, because it became interactive for me. I didn't just get to sit there and sit in judgment of the Peanuts characters who hadn't shown up for Pigpen. I had to show up and be a part of a community that allowed for this young man to laugh really loudly through the whole play. And it was uncomfortable. It was, and we all lived through it. And the play was still brilliant. And for this train conductor, yeah, it might have gotten tense. It might have been uncomfortable for somebody, and everybody can just grab a whoopee, is my advice. In any case, we have more news that we'll come back to after these messages. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back. The National Autistic Society of Great Britain has just launched a campaign called Autism in Maturity. We talk a lot about, what happens to our kids when they become teenagers, and then our teenagers when they become adults. And we don't talk enough about what happens when individual with autism moves into their senior years. I don't know about you, but my head hasn't been able to get wrapped around that. But it's important that we begin to get our heads wrapped around that, because autism is turning 50 in this decade, and there are individuals, that first group of kids who were diagnosed with autism, that are now senior citizens. And recently there was an article in Guardian talking about the fact that one of the first children in the United States diagnosed with autism was Timothy Barron. He's now nearing 60 years old, and he lives in a residential care facility. His father, who is still alive and is 84 years old, Michael Barron, spoke to the Guardian, and he called this the invisible population. And he really stressed the importance for more research. He said, we need more research into aging with autism and a focus on transition to old age. The first generation of diagnosed children are all approaching middle age, and their parents will not be around forever. And again, so Great Britain has launched this campaign, Autism and Maturity, and thank goodness, because it's a thing whose time has come. And I really, I can't thank people who are pioneers enough, because as people walk down this path and they learn and they grow and they build things, it just makes it that much easier for those of us following. And what a hopeful thing, for us to start thinking far enough ahead about what happens in old age. I know there's a lot of stuff we got to take care of between now and then, but the fact remains that really, as he said, the invisible population, I don't know if you've had the opportunity, but I certainly have, to be at an event where there's just 10,000 individuals who are on the spectrum. And it really brings home the difference in the last 50 years, the difference in the last 20 years in treating autism. Nancy Osbaugh-Jackson and I, whenever we go to an event like the big Los Angeles Walk, we will see individuals who are on the spectrum, who are living in assisted living situations, and that there's a bus that brings them, and there are caretakers who are there with them. And the kids are largely nonverbal. Their physical health is deplorable, and it really takes you back and makes you realize how fortunate our kids are that they have access to the things that they have access to. Because when you put a 10-year-old next to a 35-year-old with autism, it's a vastly different kind of autism now. And when you put a 3-year-old who's getting therapy into that mix, it's a whole different world as well. So important that they were neglected in the first round. Super duper important that we not have them be invisible, for many reasons. I mean, for the self-serving reason that what we find out about autism in old age will help our kids, but because these individuals deserve to get the help and support that they didn't get when we didn't know. Really important that we do that. All right, it is time for us to go now to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He's now 3 at this point in the series. He's already started preschool, and they're still honing his skills, getting him ready for the rest of his life, getting him completely caught up. So take a look. This is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
At 9:00, you go potty, and then you can have the iPod after you go potty.
First, we have to go. No, later we can go potty.
If you do it really fast with no crying, you can play with the iPod.
Again.
Okay? But if you cry and you do it slow, no iPod. All right? He has to use the bathroom with no behaviors and do it not really fast, but in a good amount of time versus lagging and crying and tantruming and prolonging what he has to do. And if he does it quickly and fast, he gets his reinforcer. If he doesn't, then he doesn't get his reinforcer, so he learns. We're hoping he learns it the next time. If he does it quick with no behaviors, then he gets what he wants every time. So we're going to try to go past that hump like you did with everything else, like the feeding, and if you remember that, and the safety and the walking outside, like all of that. So this is just a little bump in the road. I think will be cool. So we'll see how that goes today. Hopefully it'll go good. It's 9 o'clock. Let's see if we can do it fast, and then you can have the iPod. Let's do it.
There you go. Does somebody get to play iPod?
Yeah. Yay! Hey, did you do the potty with no crying? No. No crying, right? And did you do it fast or slow? Fast. Yay! So what do you get? iPod. Yay! I hear someone.
Hi.
Who is it?
Hi, Diana.
Hi.
What brings you here today, Diana?
I just wanted to come and see Jack Riley and make sure everything was going smoothly.
And how often does that happen?
I try to come out and see Jack Riley once a month during a home session.
You're playing with the iPad.
I have to make sure I get all your learning stuff in here.
I made a jack-o'-lantern. No, what'd you make?
Elephant.
You made an elephant! So cool, Jack. Yeah, so with Mom and Dad, the bathroom occurrence with behavior just still happening. But we did it with Dad today, and it was a lot better.
Dad did it? Okay, good.
But nonetheless, it still happens when we're not here. So I was thinking maybe we can fade ourselves out and just be outside the bathroom.
How much prompting does he need to actually get through, like, the motions? Is it getting through the motions, or is it just the behaviors?
Yeah. He can do everything
He can do
himself.
it. Are you doing that nicely or not nicely?
Doing it nicely.
I don't think so. You're crying. So were you doing it nicely or not very nicely?
Not very nicely.
Yeah. When you wash your hands, should you be crying or not crying?
Not crying.
You know what? I want you to show me how you wash your hands nicely. Okay? Let's go.
That was so much better! Jack Riley, that was awesome! That was so good!
Do you want to go sit down? Yeah. Okay. No crying when you're going potty. Okay? Are we going to work on it? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. I know, that's the point. That's the point. Again? So let's play with that. So let's take videos of him going potty. Well, it'll kind of be a baseline. So if he cries, if he gets upset, review the video with him afterwards. And then talk to him about if it was nicely or not nicely, and then try again. Okay. And we can keep reviewing the videos.
I'm sorry. So watching. Get caught up. Love this series. Want to start out by reminding you that you can go and watch the entire series on their very own YouTube channel. So let's talk a little bit about what was going on there. In the beginning, you saw Jessica talking with him and saying, okay, so here's the deal. We're going to go to the bathroom and I want you to go and I want you to go quickly and there can't be any crying. And if you do, if there's no crying and you do it really quickly, then you're going to get the iPod. If you don't, then I can't give you the iPod. Now, remember that in ABA, mostly what we want to focus on is giving a reward for something. That, you know, you do something and you get the reward. Now, the flip of that is if you're what I love, the example that Evelyn Gould always talks about is that that we don't focus on punishment, but we focus on that when something good happens, it's like the lights go on in the room and the party starts. And if you don't do something, then the lights never go on and the party never starts. Which, you know, there is that like, you know, what am I trying to say? The implication that you lose something if something doesn't happen. Now with little kids, they don't get that. A lot of times they just don't grasp that. They just get, oh, things happen and it's good when good stuff happens. But eventually when kids get a little bit older, we can start to talk with them about the cause and effect of you do this and you get this, which means if you don't do this, then you don't get that, right? We're still focusing on giving the reward as opposed to punishing. And it really becomes a difference of, you know, focusing on what you get. Now, there is something that we talk about, a response cost, that if this happens, then there's the lack of something, right? And sometimes we do set that up and tell our kids, so, you know, especially when just giving it isn't maintaining it. Sometimes we will tell them the other side of it. And if you do, and in particular, this idea that he's whining and he's crying and he's dawdling, right? He needs to get that that's the behavior that's happening. And so we're going to reward the absence of it, which means we got to talk to him about it. And we have to be able, he has to have enough receptive language to understand. And they're really bringing that home by videotaping it. And this reminds me, because we just cycled through a little whiny phase at the beginning of the summer that it went away on its own without me videotaping it. But I kept getting into these conversations with my son where he was whining and I would say, don't whine. That thing that I always tell us all not to do. And I'd go, don't whine. It drives me crazy. When you whine, I can't stand it. When you whine, it just makes me nuts. I can't, right? And now I'm whining, right? Because sometimes we just can't do any better than we can do, right? But my son and I would get into this argument about, he would say, well, that's not whining. And I would go, yes, it is. And I would give him examples of whining. Nah, I should have been videotaping him and going, look, is this whining or is this good behavior? It's so much easier when we do that. So I love the fact that the supervisor comes and she looks at the video with Jack Riley the first time and she goes, so let me ask you, are you doing a good job there? And he says, yeah, I'm doing a good job. And she says, really? Because you're crying. Should you be crying? And then he goes, oh, no. Does he understand that in that moment? He doesn't. He's like, give me the reward. I want the iPad. And he doesn't get it that the crying while you're washing your hands, it's not necessary. And I love the fact that the therapist said, is he really struggling with it or is he totally capable of doing it and it's just behaviors for whatever reason? And the therapist says, no, he because we don't want to say that our kids can't ever have their emotions, right? Sometimes you need to cry while you're washing your hands. It's not like there's a law against that, but it doesn't need to happen every time, right? It's not necessary. It slows you down. So there they go. They go, all right, we're just going to videotape. And when he does a good job, he's going to get the reward. And when he doesn't, and did you notice the way the therapist languaged it afterwards? She says, did you do a good job? He says, yeah, I did a good job. And she said, did you cry? No. And she says, what are you going to get for it? I'm going to get the iPad. She's just cementing the deal, making those inroads in his brain so that he gets it. Yeah, when I don't cry, I get the iPad. I don't. Now, one of these times he's going to cry and he's not going to get the iPad. And it's going to be a dark, dark day. And it's really going to be miserable. And mom and dad are going to be like, oh man, do we really have to go through this? And the therapist is, going to stay neutral. And it's not going to be a big discussion about, well, you shouldn't have cried. You shouldn't have whined. It's just going to be, there's not going to be the iPod. But he's going to get mad and he's going to get furious and he might tantrum as a result, which we're not going to feed, right? Because he's going to learn it really stinks when I don't do my job. It's much easier to wash my hands without crying, and if I just do that, then I get the iPod. But it's going to take at least once. He's going to push the envelope because he's a smart kid, and he's not going to do it. He's going to cry or whine or dawdle or do whatever, and then that's going to be a tough day. But it will happen, and he'll survive it. So I encourage you, watch the A Word. And you also notice, too, that I talked to you guys about skills. I use skills in my home, and that they're using skills with Jack Riley. So, and you have access to that. All you have to do is go to skillsforautism.com. You can sign up for a trial membership and see all the things that are there and check out and see if it's going to work for you in your home. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and look at your answers to the question of the day. How do you feel about inclusion? And don't forget that we have Alex Plank coming up in just a few minutes, so stick with us.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son, Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And Wilson, I have to say, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time to look at your answers to the question of the day. Today we asked you, how do you feel about inclusion? And many of you wrote in, very interesting, along the same line. Somebody who wrote in said it works well for some students. I think, like everything, it's very child-specific, right? Another person agreed with them and said, I'm an inclusion SPED teacher. As long as the gen ed teacher is a willing participant, it works well. And I think that's a really important distinction, because everybody has to be on board. If you've got somebody who's being really passive aggressive and they've gotten a student who is being included and the teacher is not seeing that as a great thing in their classroom, it's not going to go well, right? They have to be open to the concept of it. Another person who says, as long as it works well for the child and is benefiting them, then I'm all for it. Some kids don't do well in gen ed, though, and they continue to say, my daughter is starting kindergarten this year and will be mainstreaming. I hope it goes well. I do too. Another person who brings up that it depends on the teacher-student ratio. Strongly believe that it would benefit most of the students if there is extra teaching staff working, particularly with those students in the class, or else it may just end up that these students sitting in class, we talked about this earlier, parking them for the whole day instead of attending the class. Really important, the distinction between the two. And they continue to say it's really one of the challenging issues in special education field around the world. Absolutely. Bill Wong, who has been on our show before, who he himself is on the spectrum and he is also an OT, he wrote and said, I think this depends mainly on the student's abilities. And I think that's a huge part of it, right? What the student is capable of. Somebody else who said, well, this week not so good. Some students create such a chaotic environment in the classroom that other kids on the spectrum can't be in the same class, which dictates which teacher class those children are placed in. And it always is in favor of the child who has a higher need disability. Sometimes the child that is higher functioning gets the leftovers, which isn't always the best option for that child. Very difficult balancing act by school administrators. Absolutely. I don't know that it always goes in favor of the child who has the greater needs, but I do know that when there's a teacher that they know is really good working with kids who are on the spectrum, chances are they're going to put the child who needs that a little bit more, and the child who's high functioning is going to get put into the mix with a teacher who maybe doesn't have as much experience. Christina Guzman, who has been on our show because her son has been on the show, she wrote in, yes, it depends on the situation of the support people. It takes time to know who everyone is, and you have to be vigilant in making sure that there is some sort of accountability. I love that, Christina. Make sure your child is comfortable. One of the things that makes learning hard is that there are too many roadblocks keeping the child's attention from where it needs to be. If he's scared, worried about being bullied, or if the teacher is too aggressive, or if they teach something they don't understand and there is no one to help explain it, you'll lose them. Kids don't get fussy for nothing. You have to unravel the day and see what the triggers are. I don't see the autism as the problem as much as I see the people who are supposed to be helping them as the problem. This is a mom who got it done, speaking from advice. People lose their patience. We're not there at school to see what is going on. Granted, times have changed since my sons were in school. I didn't have the internet for support, and schools were just starting to see the kids trickle in. It was a rough road for us and scary. You have to be a strong advocate. Do your homework and work as an equal in the IEP, even if the school doesn't see you that way. I got a job as an aide to see what it was like on the other end. So I've experienced both sides. It wasn't pretty. But like I said, times have changed. Parents are strong advocates, and now there is support out there. Use it. Thank you so much. Somebody else who says, inclusion does not teach a child to be a part of everyday living. It's very important to teach a child in a setting that he or she will eventually need to cope with. Life is always changing, and everyone needs to adapt. Placing in a closet teaches this person not to cope. I see what you're saying. Yes, I think that in both cases, when you include and when you segregate students, it's got to be for very specific reasons, and that those specific goals, that's what an IEP is there for, an individualized plan. And the goal is always to help the child to be able to learn as much as possible, be in the least restrictive environment, and be able to take that skill through life. So parking a kid in a classroom with a bunch of other kids and not attending to their education needs is not the spirit of inclusion, and parking a child in a closet where no demands are going to be put on them is really inappropriate. So we'll continue to talk about all that, but we're going to take a break and bring Alex Plank in. He's got some really exciting stuff going on in his life, and we're going to ask him what he feels about inclusion, so stick with us.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course.
As you know, we're here on the set of The Bridge. What attracted you to the role of Sonia Cross?
I thought Sonia was a very interesting gal. She's a cop, a detective, and we come to find out in the show that she's very good at her job because she is obsessive when it comes to murder and serial killers. And part of that is because she is on the spectrum, and crime is her passion, and she just, all her energy and time goes into finding out why people do horrible things to each other.
How did you hear about Asperger's for the first time?
Actually, it's kind of through this show. I obviously had heard about autism before, but I didn't know that Asperger's would fall on the spectrum. So thanks to you and thanks to Autism Speaks, I've really was able to really sort of submerge myself with that condition and you know, the challenges that some people face because of that, and what it means to live an everyday life with that condition, and how you can excel at certain things, and then the shortcomings that sometimes people who are affected by this face.
So we're about to start episode 6. How has your character developed since the pilot?
Well, I don't know if she so much develops. This is the first time for her that she has to work with a partner. She's always been very singular and protected by Ted Levine's character, Hank. And so this is a really big learning experience for her. She has to watch out for somebody. She's being watched out for, which is also very unusual for her. And she sort of takes some social cues from him, and she's trying to be a little bit more social because those are one of the things that she finds very difficult to deal with.
What about this role has been challenging for you?
Everything. You know, no scene is ever just a scene where I say my lines, because her world is just a little bit different for her. You know, she sees very literal, as you know. She doesn't really understand jokes, and she's very honest, and she doesn't understand why people lie. And then at the same time, you know, she's so much ahead of the game in many other ways, and people look up to her because she really has the ability to focus and be very, I'm going to say, less affected by what's going on around her. She kind of has the ability to focus on things that people don't necessarily see.
Is there anything in Sonia's character that you relate to in your own personal life?
So many things. I wish I knew how to handle a gun. I'm very, very fond of Sonia. I find her incredibly endearing and charming, and sometimes she also breaks my heart. You know, she's someone that I can identify with being in a position that people you don't ever fit in. You know, I'm sure a lot of teenagers feel like that when they grow up. You know, and I still feel like that sometimes. I can be extremely shy when I'm in a big crowd, for example. I'm not very good at, you know, schmoozing and talking to people. And so I can only imagine if everyday life for you feels like that, with the challenges that you might face. So, I don't know. And then at the same time, I find her very, you know, charming. She's just like, I feel like she's such a cool girl.
Awesome. Is there anything that you'd like people to learn from this show?
I don't like to tell people, oh, this is something that you can take away from this, because I think what we do needs to be entertaining first and above everything else. And then it's our job as actors to try and bring as much substance to the characters. In my case, hopefully bring as much substance as I can to portray this condition as accurately as I can. And I just hope that people will see different personalities, different cultures, people who face different things in their life grow and evolve, and, you know, hopefully that's something that they can relate to, and they can understand people that they didn't necessarily understand before, maybe a little bit better.
Do you have anything else to add?
Well, I'm adding that I'm very grateful that you're here, and I think this is really great that you're doing this, and thank you for helping me to be honest about this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest here in the studio with us right now is Alex Plank. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you for having me. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and we should remind people at home that you are a filmmaker. You are also the creator of WrongPlanet.net, and we just watched a video of you talking to Diane Kruger.
That's right.
Of the star of The Bridge, and you have a very special connection with The Bridge. You've been being a consultant for them.
That's right.
In what capacity?
Well, I work with Diane Kruger, who plays Sonia Cross, the detective with Asperger's syndrome who works in El Paso and has to work with the Mexican detective Marco Reese, who's played by Demian Bashir, and they have to work together to find the killer.
And you're there, though, to be a consultant, though, in terms of how she aptly and correctly portrays Asperger's.
Right. So basically I work with the writers, the producers, and I work with her on set to make sure that the character's accurate. I come up with suggestions, ideas for things that she could do, stims, anything autistic. I'm there for her, and I support her, and it's an amazing job to do because I get to work with, you know, some really talented people.
Yeah. And you're doing a great job because she is very accurately portraying Asperger's. And we should note that the reason why you're able to give her that information is because you yourself are on the autism spectrum.
Right. And I know a lot of people through the website and know a lot about it. So I actually take from lots of different people that I know. And there's no one specific person that she's based on, really. Just a lot of traits that she's her own character.
I noticed that she does a thing with pens that I've seen you do before. Did you give that to her to give?
I did.
It's a very interesting thing that she. I can't quite do it, but she does a thing with a pen.
Right.
And I was like, oh my goodness, I have seen that before.
And she does some other things where she'll stroke her jacket and do things like that.
It's a very subtle portrayal, but it's absolutely brilliant, and the show is brilliant, and we should mention that. And you have some very exciting news about your continuing role with The Bridge.
Right.
What's happening with that?
Not only am I a consultant, but I'm getting to act in the show. So
very exciting.
Play a character who works at the El Paso Times, and you'll see me in one of the episodes that comes out in, I think, in a month or a half, maybe.
Okay, so my big question for you is: your character going to be on the spectrum as well, or are you portraying someone who is not on the spectrum?
That's I don't think so. I don't think I'm on the spectrum.
It's so okay.
I play someone else. Yeah.
So you're playing somebody who is not on the spectrum, and
maybe I am. Who knows? You'll have to find out. It's not
yet
discussed.
To be revealed.
I don't have a consultant helping me with it, so
because I think that would be a really interesting. You know, I mean, and as you approach this as an actor, in your mind, though, at least this character is not on the spectrum.
Well, all I know is that so far that is yet to be determined. So the writers are going to write more parts.
It's yet to be revealed. Yeah. Well, we're very excited for you. We love the show. We support the show big time here, and of course we support you. And we'll look forward to seeing you. Do you know when your first air date is?
I don't know the exact date, but obviously it'll be on a Wednesday at 10.
Okay.
It's every Wednesday at 10. The Bridge.
Okay.
And you can watch this Wednesday. One thing that has appeared already is the WrongPlanet.net mug that Sonia drinks from. And you can see it for the first time in episode 5.
Okay. So, and we'll encourage people to go to WrongPlanet.net to see more of what you're doing and more of videos like the one we just saw where you were interviewing her.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, if you want to ask a question of Alex, I've got a bunch of questions for him. And in particular, I'm going to talk to him about inclusion and his feelings about inclusion and more about the Bridge after these messages. Stick with us.
The Center for Autism and Related Disorders is celebrating the grand opening of the CARD Assessment Center in Woodland Hills. The CARD Assessment Center provides consultation and assessment for individuals of all ages with a variety of disorders, including autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit disorder, memory disorder, learning disability, and intellectual giftedness. To schedule an appointment, contact the CARD Assessment Center today.
Welcome back. We're here with Alex Plank from WrongPlanet.net, creator of that amazing informational website. If you are on the spectrum or you have young teen to adult children who are on the spectrum, you really need to spend some time on that website. And how old were you when you created that, Alex?
17.
17. Amazing. But that's one of your many loves, but you're also a talented filmmaker.
Yes.
And you are an actor.
Yes.
And now a paid and working actor on the Bridge. Yeah. Well, lots of people are actors, but not a lot of people are a recurring character on a TV series. Yes. So that takes it, you're an actor at a new level.
Yes, I was so excited to get that, and I went in and I auditioned.
Did you?
And actually, so they have a room with a camera and the casting directors, and producers will sit in there, and there's other actors there auditioning, and they're not just auditioning for the part that I had. There was one auditioning for another part. There was a couple guys auditioning for a totally different role, and one of them wished me luck, and I went in there, and they had me say my line, but the thing is that I would keep walking off camera because I was handing something to someone.
And so you kept thinking, like a stage actor.
So I went over and I handed it to the casting director.
Right, but they couldn't.
And on the third try, right before the third try, she was like, "Well, this time why don't you just stand there in front of the camera so that we get you on camera?"
Right.
And I was like, "Okay, I'll do that."
It's a very bizarre thing when you're auditioning for certain things and when what the camera frame is. And I always thought it was interesting that when people are auditioning for theater things, a lot of times they ask for a monologue.
Yes.
And you almost never do a monologue in a play. Like that would be something that would be done in a film, and they almost never ask for a monologue.
Monologues in plays.
In a play, but not. But not.
But it's not from the play that you're auditioning for.
Right. It's very rare in a play that someone stands, I mean, they do it in Shakespeare, but in a modern play, it's very rare that they stand there and talk to somebody who isn't there, which is what's happening in the audition. That happens all the time in film. In film, you have to stand there and pretend you're talking to somebody, and instead you're talking to a mic stand or a spot or a camera. It just seems like the two things are a little backwards to me. And then in film, when you audition, you know, a lot of times they want to have a conversation with you and then read from the script. It's very rare that they would ever ask for you to talk to a piece of tape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just seems like an odd thing to me.
I still talk to her. I just...
Yes.
I looked at her. I didn't look at the camera.
That's good. Yeah. That's really good. And so did Diane Kruger give you lessons before you... Did you work with her on it, on the sides? No?
No. I told her to be my consultant.
And how did she consult with you? Did she give you a mannerism to do?
She sent me a message right before I did it saying, "Good luck, I know you're going to do well."
Okay.
So
very good.
That was, I guess, a pretty good consulting. So.
That is pretty good consulting. And is that what you do to her? Good luck, I know you're going to do really well?
Well, no, I do. But I work with her on the autism aspect.
Right.
So.
But
I mean, I've learned so much just by watching all of the cast. I mean, Diane's amazing. Demian's amazing.
Yeah.
And Matthew Lillard. And everyone on there.
And it's getting a lot of great attention, the show is. And every expectation, have you guys already been picked up for a second season?
I haven't heard word on that yet.
I'm sure you will be, though. It's a very good show, very well attended.
We're getting great reviews.
Absolutely.
We're getting a lot of people watching the show.
Yes, and you're getting great reviews across the board, but it should be said, since we're a show that talks about autism, the autism community has really embraced this and said that it is one of the great examples of somebody portraying a character with Asperger's really aptly, and the irony being that the term Asperger's has just...
Well, it's all autism.
Right.
So now now the term Asperger's isn't even going to be a technical differentiation. It's just autism spectrum disorder.
Right.
So, an autistic character on television is something that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. In any shape, way, or form.
And the thing is that I've seen it before where it's just not accurate. You see it on comedies.
Yeah.
And it's always a caricature.
Yeah.
And this is different. This is something where it's not.
Yeah.
And I think the show is not about autism. The show is not about, I mean, in a way it's more about like the border and all the stories and different characters that are going, in between the U.S. and the Mexican border and doing things there and all the crazy things that happens. And some pretty crazy stuff's going to happen and already has.
Right. So. And there's a bit of a mythology to it, that things that we don't know that are going to unfold over time. But one of the things that I really like about it is that it is a part of her character. It is not the whole entire being of her.
Right. That's what's good about it. That's why it is so real.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so I appreciate your hand in that, because I'm sure that you had a hand in that she is, it is a part of her and it's a part of the show, but it is not the be all end all of the show. It's incidental, which I really appreciate. Want to talk a little bit about inclusion, and so I'm wondering if we can take a break and come back and talk with you about your feelings about inclusion.
Sounds great.
All right, so stick with us. We'll be back with more Alex Plank after this message. What do you think about ABA treatment?
ABA is the one that's documented, but I think that's what I think is important with little kids, the intensity. If this kid's 2, 3, and 4 years old, he needs 20 or 30 hours a week of intensive early intervention, working one-to-one with an effective teacher. Mm-hmm. And an effective teacher knows kind of how just hard to push, because you've got to stretch these kids. Mm-hmm. If you don't stretch them somewhere, they don't advance. Mm-hmm. You push them on them too hard, they go into sensory shutdown. The worst thing you could do with an autistic 2-year-old is to do nothing with them and just let them sit there rocking. And when I was very young, at 2.5, ABA-type things were used on me, but it wasn't called ABA in that day. Right. My teacher would hold up a cup, and she'd speak slowly. You got to speak slowly to these kids because there's auditory processing problems. She'd say cup, and then I'd say cup, and the teacher would praise me. That's very similar to ABA. ABA in its original form is a little kids program. The whole idea is you're trying to get language jump-started. And I like the more flexible kinds of ABA. You got different levels of kids. Once, I mean, I had ABA type stuff when I was young, but then after I pulled out of it, I didn't have to go through elaborate things of getting ready for school. I still have this habit now today. I lay my clothes out the night before that I'm going to wear, so when I'm sleepy I can just get them on. And then you have other individuals where they've got to do very structured, breaking down the task analysis. This is where after you get out of the little kids and you get them talking, they kind of diverge into different levels of functioning. And a type of ABA program that be suitable for a very severe kid would not be something you'd want to do with a mild Asperger kid, because you're going to bore them to death and make them hate school.
Absolutely. Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest in the studio right now is the fabulous Alex Plank. He's a filmmaker, and he is also the creator of WrongPlanet.net, and he is an actor with a recurring role on The Bridge and a consultant for The Bridge for all things autism, for their leading character. Pretty amazing. We have been talking about our topic this entire week is inclusion, and we've been asking our viewers how they feel about inclusion. And for you, a very successful and talented young adult who is on the spectrum, I'd love to know your thoughts and feelings about inclusion.
Well, I think inclusion is really important. And I think that when it's done right, which is not too hard to do, then it works really well. And I think that it's better than the opposite, where you don't have inclusion. And I think that all things that you do should involve inclusion, because you learn from other kids sort of how to act. And if you're only with other people with autism, then you might not pick up on certain things that would be helpful that you would learn. And when you go out into the world, it's inclusion. Everyone's everywhere. There's no specific.
Now, I know you have a group of friends that are on the spectrum, that whenever I go to these events, I see you with a group of guys and gals, that you guys are a pretty tight-knit group, but I know that you have a much wider world of that people that you hang out with on a daily basis are not on the spectrum. Is it different for you? Do you have a different feeling? Like, do you feel like you're allowed to do or say things when you're with your group of friends that are on the spectrum that you can't with the friends who aren't on the spectrum?
At this point, I really don't see a differentiation. I just see them as my friends.
Which is great.
Don't.
That's how everybody should see everybody. But when you were growing up, you were diagnosed, at 9?
Yes.
And so I'm imagining that before that, there was no question about inclusion, that you were just automatically included before that. When you went off to school, there was no, were you always in the neurotypical class?
Not always. I was in the gifted program. I would go out for that. And I did go to resource class when I was in middle school.
Okay. So, but before the diagnosis, before the age of 9, though, you just went off to school.
But I always was included. I was always in the regular classrooms.
Yeah.
There wasn't any special classroom that I went to instead of the normal classroom.
Okay.
But I went additionally to resource, where they helped me with organizational skills and doing work and.
Okay, and how much of the portion of the day would you go to be there?
Just one period.
Like one period?
Yeah, a small period.
And they worked on organization, so more like the executive function skills of how to plan and how to do
calendar,
things.
stuff
which
like
I think
that.
Every kid should get.
Yes.
It's disappointing to me that every student doesn't get that. As a former junior high school teacher, every single student needs that. And you found it helpful to go to that class?
I did.
Was there any stigma attached to you going to that class?
I felt like there was a stigma, and I didn't like it, really.
Okay.
I didn't like the fact that I was going to a different class.
Okay.
But at a certain point, I just realized that
you needed it, or that it was helpful?
Helped. I didn't need it because I stopped going in I think, at the end of high school.
Okay. And there was a period of time, though, that your parents took you out of just public school and sent you to a private school.
I did. I went to a private school because I was having a lot of trouble with the bullying at public school. And
so
they didn't think the teachers were dealing with it properly, and I think that they were right that the teachers were definitely not dealing with it properly. Neither was the administration in the school.
Yeah.
So.
But it wasn't a question of you being able to keep up with the schoolwork ever.
No. If I did my homework or didn't lose it.
Yeah.
One thing I found is once things went online, everything was online, it was so much easier for me because I never lost papers or lost things. So
yeah, I'm a part of that generation too. That I love now that there's a smartphone, and as long as my smartphone works,
my calendar synced, everything's good. I got my emails. I always have everything at the tip of my fingers.
Yeah, my husband and I are king and queen of writing things down on a paper plate and then going, where's that paper plate that I can't find the person's phone number that could drive a person crazy. And my husband has gotten much better at putting things in his notes on his smartphone. I've been learning that from him, that I don't need a paper plate or a Post-it note ever again in my life, as long as I have the smartphone. So I think technology can help all of us with organization in that way. But so what, was it 2 years that you were away at the private school?
Yeah, it was, I went there, I think it was third. So I was in fourth and fifth for the...
Okay. I can really relate to, because those, my son was just in fourth and now he's in fifth, and I see that the bullying kind of like ratchets up around that age.
And the reason we went to this private school is a very small class size, so it was, more inclusive, and teachers were all very good at stopping bullying from happening. I mean, it still did, but...
And then by the time you got to sixth grade, though, you went back to public school?
Yes.
Okay. But you were there, and with the exception of just going to that resource class to help with management, you were there just like every other kid, completely included.
Right.
Which, and we've been talking about the fact that it's really child-specific and it's location-specific, but did you feel like your teachers were supportive of you as an individual when you were in, like, from sixth grade on? Or did you feel
it depended on the teacher. There were some teachers that were absolutely amazing. I had one teacher, Mr. Evans, who was my ninth grade English teacher, and he was awesome, and I learned so much from him.
Yeah.
And then there were other teachers where they decided we just didn't click, and
they were phoning it in. I think there's some.
I don't know. I don't know if it was that, or they just didn't understand me, or probably both, all three of those.
Yeah. Well, and it would be an unrealistic expectation to expect every single teacher to get to click with every single kid.
But even when they didn't click, I mean, I just didn't get along with them as well, or learn as much, or get as inspired. I mean, I still was able to pass all my classes.
Right.
For the most part.
Which is really, I think, part of the key to inclusion is that the child has to be ready. That you got to be able to keep pace to a certain degree. You can have an individualized program, but you got to keep pace. But you were also part of the gifted and talented. Did you ever find yourself, before you were in the gifted and talented classes, where you were bored, where it wasn't moving fast?
I would get bored.
Yeah.
In certain times, but I mean, I would find other ways to occupy my time. Like I edited Wikipedia a lot. I think I've edited more than 10,000 articles on Wikipedia. And some of that...
Were you doing that in class while the teacher was trying to teach you?
No, I was just like not in class. I was...
But at home, that's what you would do for your free time.
Yeah.
That's kind of an amazing thing that would never occur to me. You just go on Wikipedia and you edit them?
Before people even knew what Wikipedia was, I was like a systems operator on there, and like I helped create a lot of articles on there.
That's pretty amazing, Alex. Let's take another break, and then we'll come back. I want to get a little bit of an update on the documentary that you've been making about the state of autism in France. Shameful, right?
Yes.
So we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Stick with us.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet. Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome back. We're here with Alex Plank from wrongplanet.net. Really want to encourage anybody who's watching, if you have teenagers, if you have adults, if you yourself are a teenager or an adult and you're looking for a place to go to find out more information and to feel like there are other people who get it, right? I mean, isn't that the main crux of wrongplanet.net? It's people who get it.
Yes. And and it's great to be able to find other people who are in the same situation as you. I mean, and it's so empowering to be able to get advice.
Yeah.
And maybe other parents who had a kid that did the same thing as your child is doing right now. And so, or other people on the autism spectrum. I mean, there's just as many people on the autism spectrum, actually more, I would say, than even parents. On there.
Absolutely. And
at least posting.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about the film that you're making, but while we're on this subject of wrongplanet.net, because we've had several people write into us recently about their feelings about finding out that they're on the spectrum, and some people who are struggling with it. And I always give your site as a reference, and you as a reference of somebody that people can look to, because we've gotten some despair from a couple of different viewers saying, one adult in particular saying, you know, I don't know if somebody doesn't tell me that this is going to get better. I don't know that I'm in this for the long haul. And you certainly have gone through, it hasn't all been easy for you. I think I look at you and I think, well, gosh, it's easy for Alex, but I'm sure it's not.
No, and it certainly is easier now.
Yeah.
And it was, at one point, it was incredibly difficult. It was just so hard that I wanted to, every day, I was like, why is this like this? Why can't I, do this? Why can't I get friends? Why can't I connect with people? And, I've worked really hard to not have that worry anymore.
And what did you do? Because sometimes people write in and say, okay, I get it, that part of what's happening is that I'm reacting in a different way, but where do I go to learn that? What did you do?
I went out and just talked to people and tried really hard to connect, and would talk to as many people as possible, would just be really talkative. So.
Yeah. Even in the time that I have known you, because I've known you a little, like probably around a year now, and I've noticed I've been in several different situations with you, and I can remember at least one time in particular where you just asked me, you said, this is happening right here, was I supposed to do this? Was this what was acceptable in this moment? I don't think you're bashful about saying what's happening. Is there a rule here I don't know about?
And I think that the problem that some people face in learning is that they feel almost like they're doing something wrong, or they're ashamed of the fact that they're messing up, when in reality they're going to have to mess up to learn what to do right. And they'll also see rejection as them messing up, when in reality you never know why someone rejects you. So you have to really gauge if the rejection is based on anything that you did, and if it is based on something you did, well, there's so many people in this world that I think getting rejected by even 10,000 people is like
it's
nothing.
A drop in the bucket. Yeah, right. Well, and I think that it's a great attitude that you have about learning and developing, and it's informed me, because there are lots of times when I'm in a social situation where I don't know what the rules are, and I would almost never ask. But being in a social situation with you, and you say, okay, I'm thinking of one time in particular where you said, okay, is there something here going on that I don't know about? Is there something I need to know? And I was able to say to you, no, it's not that at all. This just, I can think of exactly what the example was. It was the day when we shaved my head here on the show, and we were all here. The studio was filled with people. You were here. It was just a lot of stuff going on all at once, and they shaved my head bald here on the show live. And afterwards, Monica Holloway was here, and she brought this huge gift basket of flowers and balloons and insanity. And you said to me, Shannon, was I supposed to send you flowers? Was that? And you said, I'm so sorry. Is that something I didn't know? And I said, oh my gosh, no, Alex. This was, there is no written thing about somebody shaves their head on a live show. You're supposed to bring them flowers. Monica's the only person who did it. She went way over the top. That's just a Monica thing. And it wasn't, and that's like, exactly what you said. You said, oh, okay, I haven't messed up. And because you were wondering, because there is no manual of, your friend is going to shave their head on a show. What are you supposed to do besides show up? And I thought it was so great that you asked the question, because it doesn't occur to me as a person to ask in a circumstance like that. And I could. We all could. We could be asking, what are the rules here?
And if you ask, nothing bad happens.
No, and I didn't think any.
And
of the
even if
lesson
something
was
bad
asked.
did happen,
Right. I mean, in the worst possible circumstance, if it was a thing where, it had been a wedding shower and you had said to me, was I supposed to bring a gift? I could have said to you, well, a lot of people do that sort of a thing.
Right.
And you would have known for the next time. Nothing horrible. No pit would have opened. We wouldn't have fallen to our deaths.
Right.
It would have been okay. But I think a lot of us tend to not be, we're afraid of that moment. We're afraid of looking like we don't know what we're doing. And I see in you that you've let go of that fear of that.
Yes. It took a lot of times of feeling like really bad about certain situations, or if I felt like I messed up, and then I realized just that it really didn't matter.
And what do you say to people who think, when they look at the spectrum, especially of Asperger's, when they think that it means being insensitive, that the person did something because they don't care?
I think that's people not understanding or taking the time to. I mean, at the same time, if you're on the autism spectrum and you don't take the time to ask if you're doing something right, or but sometimes, even then, like, you might not realize that you did something wrong. It might not even occur to you. So in that case, it's kind of hard to fault someone who's doing their best. But of course, you could also just be insensitive as well. You could be insensitive and still have autism. It's not an excuse for not caring. But there's no reason to say that there's any less of a caring person just because they're autistic. It's just,
But that there tends to be that stigma that people think when somebody is being insensitive, then it seems to be the current thing is to jump to and go, well, maybe they're on the spectrum, as if those two things go hand in hand, and leaving out that step of that sometimes somebody on the spectrum is insensitive to something in the moment because they're not aware of what's happening.
That's what they think is happening. Maybe when someone says that, when they're saying, oh, maybe they're autistic, maybe they're not being insensitive, they're just unaware that they're...
Right. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, anyway, we're here with Alex Plank, and now we're really going to take a break and come back and talk about Shameful. So this time, I said that last time. Stick with us.
Nick was diagnosed with autism in 1994 at the age of 4. He received 5 years of therapy from CARD that eventually faded out. Nick recovered from autism in 2001.
The song I'm about to perform is by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. CARD helped many patients, myself, to recover to this level now.
Cheryl and Mike's son, Jack Riley, was diagnosed with autism in 2010 at age 2. He's been receiving therapy from CARD for a year and a half. Today, Cheryl, Mike, and Nick meet for the first time.
I'm curious as to what you remember.
I certainly remember pretty long sessions, and I'd be frustrated if I would make mistakes. I mean, I remember one time I had to count a row of 6 blocks, kept messing up. That was really difficult.
No. I need it. I need it.
At what point do you recall hearing the word autism?
I was able to figure out what I was going through without anybody having to tell me.
Our concern is if it's a big secret to hide. I don't know what we can say.
No one ever told you, you just discerned
But the
it?
reason I'm comfortable talking about this is because I felt it. In therapy, I certainly began questioning why people reacted as they did based on what I said and did. Particularly because of difficulties I was facing in school. It got to a point where I wanted to understand why it was. So I entered while still going through therapy and still showing significant signs of the mental condition. Even after I'd improved to a significant extent, there were those who still gave me a hard time for it.
Did it hurt your feelings when you were in school, the way that kids...
Oh, absolutely, because it was bullying, it was harassment.
That scares us.
They called me names. I was basically, when it came to sports and PE, I was usually the last kid chosen.
Did teachers intervene?
Fortunately, not really. I mean, it was just so hard for me to talk about it because how ashamed I felt. You know, certainly the first few years of elementary school, I don't think I really had the most supportive teachers. I mean, I remember my mom told me how my first grade teacher once said that she thought I had no chance of getting anywhere and going away to college and out of state and being the only person from my old school district has made a difference. It's just really improved my social life tremendously because I got to be me, because with nobody knowing about my past, I wasn't faced with these misconceptions and prejudgments.
Do you tell people, new people that you meet?
No, that's not the first thing I will ever
No, I would
tell
hope it's not the
and
first thing.
You know what? In most cases, I never do, because while it's a part of my past, it doesn't define who I am. I mean, just thinking back to the very beginning, pretty much each episode, autism, what, not who.
I want to tell you right now, though, I'm so impressed with you.
Likewise.
I want you to know that.
Likewise. I mean, your son really inspires me just as much, because I'll tell you, anytime
I adore him, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't challenging.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
it's cost me my the stuff that like career things, goals. I don't care about those anymore. I work at night. I'm tending bar. Not that I'm too good for that. I'm just saying that's what I do. I want him to have a chance.
Right.
And you inspire me now.
Thank you. The feeling goes both ways. The feeling's mutual.
Before you leave today, we would like you to meet Jack.
I would love to.
This is Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Jack Riley.
All right, should we try this? I'm gonna try to take a picture of all of you. 1, 2, and 3.
Jack Riley, you rock.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We had to say goodbye to Alex, and I apologize, but we will next week. He's scheduled to be back as well, and you guys can ask questions of him in real time then. And we'll talk more about his film Shameful then. We've talked about it a little bit before on the show, but we'll talk more about it then. I apologize for that. A couple of programming notes about this week. We are focusing on inclusion. So our experts, we're going to be talking about inclusion whenever we possibly can, but we have a bunch of exciting guests that are going to be with us. We have Robin and I'm Going to Murder It. Is it Flutterby? I think it's something like that. That's going to be with us tomorrow at 10:20. And then we are not going to have Evelyn Gould, but I think I have somebody in my back pocket for you on that. Then don't forget on Wednesday, Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet will be here and will take your questions. Speaking of which, we had a couple of questions that came in on the live feature. Somebody who wanted to know, do we also talk about adults who get diagnosed late? And that is a topic that we have coming up very soon, because it is something that's happening more and more. I mentioned to you guys last week that the Monkees were going to be here in town, and I did not get to go and see them. Don't make me cry. I had tickets, and I couldn't go because it was my son's open house night at school when he got to meet all of his friends and be there in his classroom the night before. And so, like the good autism mom that I'm trying to be, I gave up my tickets to see the Monkees. I may never get to see them, and it's been a lifelong thing for me. Very, very bummed about that. But what I didn't know before that is that Peter Tork, who is one of the original Monkees and was touring with them this time, was diagnosed late with Asperger's, like in his 20s, got a diagnosis of Asperger's, and says it really made a difference that he began to realize why things had been so difficult for him and could make all kinds of progress. Very, very fascinating. Another person who wrote in and said, my nephew has autism. How can I help? Well, I have to tell you, first of all, you must have searched to find us, and the fact that you came and found us and are wanting to know what you can do to help, already clearly you're somebody who gets it, that there's something that you can do. Tell your extended family about this site, that they can come here and find information. Have no judgment when they don't do it right away, right? But one of the best things that you can do as a family member is to ask that very same question that you're asking of us, of the family. And it may be in the early days that they don't know what to tell you yet, but here are some things to keep in mind. That learning the techniques that we talk about here on the show, and depending on what the family decides to do for therapy, be involved. Say, I want to learn what it is that you guys are going to do to intervene, because I want to be available and be somebody that you can trust to leave your child with when you have to go to a doctor's appointment, or when you have to go to this job interview, or when you have to go someplace, or when you want to go see a movie. Because having somebody that you can count on to watch your child and know that they're going to uphold what you're trying to do is one of the most amazing things that any of us can hope for in this life. So I think that that's a really great thing if you're up for it to do some. Now, some people will say, I don't know that I can do that. That's great. You know what the next best thing to do is to give money and gas cards or do a fundraiser for the family, because they're going to need it. They're going to need it. And be an advocate for them. If they say, hey, we're supporting this, support it with them. Because as so many people have said, when, part of the reason why more doesn't happen for autism is because the people who need it the most are busy at the time that they could be advocating for their kids. So be that advocate for that family. Help with a gas card or help with your time. Give respite, be patient, and listen, but I think you already can and will. Now, we had another response from somebody who wrote in with a specific response for Dr. Doreen. I'm the parent that wrote about my child getting 10 hours of ABA through the regional center. I already started the process with CARD, and hopefully within 1 month I will start my child with a fully productive ABA. We're almost out of time, so Emily's going to cycle through as I talk to this parent and show you the different ways that you can be involved with us. So and I'll read all this again on Wednesday, but the main question was, do I need to go through the school district and start the IEP? Does that mean he will start school at 3? But like I said earlier, I've started the process with CARD, and hopefully we'll get him full-time like Dr. Grandpichet recommended. Do I need to go through the school district? If not now, how do we get him to interact with other peers? I'm so confused about this whole school district. And they use the word crap. Please help. Thanks again for all that you do. God bless you guys. I'm going to let Dr. Grandpichet answer most of that question, but I am going to say, because I know sometimes time is of the essence, yes, you still need to do the IEP process. And it is sometimes that lovely steaming pile of poo that you referred to, but you still need to start going through the process, because there's going to be other services that they're going to help you with, like speech and OT. Your child does not have to go to their preschool. They may recommend one. It might be another headache, but start the IEP process. I think, make sure that you're getting that set up with CARD so that you're going to do that full in-home program, but the school district will be able to provide you with other stuff. Let them know that you're doing CARD, and if you have insurance or regional center that's going to pay for that, let them know that that's what you're trying to do, but you're still going to need the school district on board. And they will offer things like speech and OT that you won't have to pay for out of pocket. We'll talk more about this with Dr. Grandpichet on Wednesday, but I want you to know, yes, sign that piece of paper that you're going to the IEP meeting and get moving in that direction. Be prepared to be at that IEP meeting. We're out of time, but we will be back tomorrow. So looking forward to being with you here. Keep it coming, your questions in the meantime. We'll see you at 10 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.